My neighbor drained my pool to fill his during a drought, so I showed the city inspector his luxury Oasis was built over a high-pressure gas line. I stood at the edge of my backyard patio at 6 p.m., staring down into the abyss. My 25,000-gallon in-ground pool, which I had just paid $4,000 to have professionally balanced and treated for the summer, was empty. The vinyl liner was already drying out and cracking in the blistering July heat, looking like shed snake skin. A thick, industrial orange hose snaked out of the bottom drain, up the concrete wall, and over the fence into my neighbor Steve's yard. "Steve," I bellowed, vaulting the fence. Steve was standing by his brand new, unpermitted above-ground pool, watching the last of my water gush into his filtration system. He held a beer in one hand and the hose in the other, grinning like he just won the lottery. "Hey buddy," Steve shouted over the hum of the pump. "Perfect timing. We're at 90%. The kids are gonna love this." "You stole my water," I said, my voice shaking with a rage so pure it felt cold. "We are in a tier 4 drought restriction, Steve. You can't fill a new pool, so you stole mine." "Borrowed," he corrected, turning off the nozzle. "Look, the washer trucks are booked out for weeks. My grandkids are coming tomorrow for the barbecue. I couldn't let them stare at an empty pool. I'll pay you back when it rains." "You ruined the liner," I said, pointing at my yard. "Once that vinyl dries out, it shrinks. It rips. That's a $10,000 repair job." "Stop whining," he snapped, his smile vanishing. "You're a single guy. You don't need a pool. My family comes first. If you call the cops, I'll tell them you agreed to it. It's your word against mine. Now get off my property before I turn the hose on you." I walked back to my house. I could hear his grandkids splashing in my water an hour later. I felt helpless. The police would call it a civil dispute. The lawyers would take months. I went into my home office and pulled out the neighborhood survey maps. I worked for the municipal planning board 5 years ago. I knew this subdivision like the back of my hand. Steve had installed that pool deck himself last weekend. I watched him dig the post holes. That's when the real bombshell dropped. I overlaid the satellite image of Steve's new Oasis with the underground utility schematics. My heart skipped a beat. Steve hadn't just built his pool without a permit. He had drilled his deck posts directly on top of a 30-inch high-pressure natural gas transmission line, the main artery for the entire county. If that pool settled, or if one of those deck posts shifted the soil too much, it wouldn't just be a leak, it would be a crater. I didn't call the police. I called the gas company's emergency line. Then I called the city building inspector, a woman named Karen, literally, who lived for demolition orders. "We have a potential critical infrastructure breach," I told the operator. "Unauthorized excavation over the easement, 402 Maple Drive. We're rolling the trucks," the operator said, her voice tight. The next morning, Steve's barbecue was in full swing at 1 p.m. The music was blasting. The kids were screaming in the pool. Steve was flipping burgers, king of the cul-de-sac. Then the cavalry arrived. 4 massive utility trucks blocked the street. A city inspector's car screeched into the driveway. Men in hard hats and reflective vests swarmed the yard carrying gas sniffers and jackhammers. "Evacuate the yard," the lead foreman screamed, cutting the music. "Everybody out now." Steve dropped his spatula. "What is this? I'm having a party." "You are parked on top of a bomb, sir," the foreman yelled, pointing at the pool. "We detected ground shift near the main line. This entire structure has to go immediately." But the water," Steve stammered. "The water is the least of your problems," Inspector Karen said, stepping forward with her clipboard. "I don't see a permit for this pool or this deck. You have violated a dozen zoning laws and endangered the entire neighborhood." I watched from my kitchen window, sipping coffee. They didn't ask him to take it down. They did it for him. An excavator claw ripped through the side of his shiny new pool. Whoosh. My 25,000 gallons of water flooded out, washing away his landscaping, his burger station, and turning his backyard into a mud pit. Then they took chainsaws to the deck. By 4 p.m., Steve's backyard looked like a war zone. He was standing in the mud, holding a citation that looked to be about 6 feet long. He looked up and saw me watching. I raised my mug. "Hope the grandkids had fun, Steve." Steve is currently facing a $50,000 fine from the utility company and a lien on his house, and he still has to pay to fix my liner. So, am I the monster for ruining his family barbecue, or did he deserve to get washed away after he tried to sink me?